Hey there, English learners! Are you ready to transform your English journey? Today we're going to explore something that every single English student wonders about. How do you actually go from knowing absolutely nothing to speaking English with real confidence and fluency? This isn't just another language lesson. This is your complete roadmap to English mastery. You know what the biggest problem is for most English learners? They jump around from method to method without any clear direction. One day they're studying grammar rules, the next day they're trying to memorize vocabulary lists, and then suddenly they're watching movies hoping everything will just click. But here's the thing. Learning English without a proper plan is like trying to build something without instructions. You end up frustrated, confused, and ready to give up. But what if I told you there's actually a proven path that works? What if there was a step-by-step system that could take you from complete beginner to confident speaker? That's exactly what we're going to cover today. Think of this as your GPS for English learning. No more getting lost, no more wasting time on the wrong activities. The secret lies in understanding that English learning is just like construction. You wouldn't start decorating a house before building the walls, right? You wouldn't install windows before laying the foundation. Every successful building project follows a specific order, and English learning is exactly the same. There's a logical sequence that makes everything easier and faster. Most people fail because they try to do everything at once. They want to speak like natives while still struggling with basic sentences. They want to understand movies while they can barely hold a simple conversation. This approach leads to burnout and disappointment every single time. But when you follow the right order, each step naturally prepares you for the next one. So buckle up because we're about to take this journey together. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where you are in your English journey and what your next step should be. No more guessing, no more confusion, just a clear path forward. Let's start with the absolute foundation of English learning, and I mean the real foundation, not what most courses tell you. When you're a complete beginner, you don't need to worry about complex grammar rules or impressive vocabulary. You need survival English. Think about it this way. If you were dropped into an English-speaking country tomorrow, what would you actually need to communicate? The answer is surprisingly simple. You need maybe 500 to 1,000 of the most common English words, and that's it. With these basic words, you can handle almost any everyday situation. You can order food, ask for directions, buy things at the store, and have simple conversations. Research shows that these common words make up about 80% of everything native speakers actually say in daily life. Here's what your survival toolkit should include. Basic verbs like go, want, need, have, simple nouns like water, food, house, time, and essential phrases like how much, where is, I don't understand, and can you help me? This isn't glamorous vocabulary, but it's powerful because it actually works in real situations. At this stage, perfect grammar is your enemy. Yes, you heard that right. When you're building your foundation, trying to speak perfectly will actually slow you down. Instead of worrying whether you should say, I have eaten or I ate, just say, I eat food yesterday. Native speakers will understand you perfectly, and that's what matters right now. The magic happens through repetition, but not boring repetition. You want to practice these basic words and phrases until they become automatic. Listen to simple dialogues over and over again. Repeat sentences out loud until they feel natural in your mouth. Try something called shadowing. Play audio and speak along with it like you're creating an echo. It feels weird at first, but it trains your brain and mouth to work together. Remember, making mistakes at this level isn't failure. It's proof that you're actually using English instead of just studying it. Every mistake means you're brave enough to try, and that's exactly the mindset that leads to fluency. Don't be the student who studies for years but never speaks because they're afraid of making errors. What's one basic English phrase you use every day or wish you could use more confidently? Share it in the comments and let's build that foundation together. Once you've mastered those survival basics, it's time to build your walls, the structure that transforms your English from just surviving to actually communicating with depth and flexibility. This is where your English starts to come alive because you're no longer trapped in the present moment. You can start talking about your past, your future plans, and different situations. Think about how limiting it is when you can only say, I go to work. That tells people what you do, but it doesn't paint the full picture of your life. But when you can say, I went to work yesterday, I'm going to work tomorrow, or I usually go to work by bus, suddenly you're telling complete stories. You're sharing experiences, making plans, and explaining your daily routine. This is the stage where you need to find the perfect balance between input and output. Input means consuming English through listening and reading. It's like feeding your brain with new language patterns, vocabulary, and natural expressions. But if you only consume and never practice speaking or writing, you'll understand everything but struggle to express your own thoughts. Output is where you take everything you've learned and actually use it. This means having conversations, writing about your day, or even talking to yourself in English. Yes, talking to yourself works. It's a safe space to practice without judgment, and it helps your brain process the language patterns you've been absorbing. Here's where shadowing becomes incredibly powerful. You're not just repeating words anymore, you're training your entire language system. Listen to natural conversations, podcasts, or videos, then repeat what you hear while matching the speaker's rhythm and intonation. Start slowly and gradually increase your speed until you can keep up naturally.
The beautiful thing about this stage is that English stops feeling like a school subject and starts feeling like a real tool for communication. You begin to think in English sometimes, dream in English occasionally, and notice that English words pop into your head when you're trying to express something complex in your native language. Don't rush through this building phase. Just like constructing walls takes time and patience, developing your English structure requires consistent daily practice. Add new words gradually, experiment with different tenses, and most importantly, start using your English in real situations whenever possible. Now we reach a critical point that trips up so many English learners, the intermediate plateau. You can understand quite a lot now. You can read articles, follow podcasts, and have decent conversations. But something frustrating happens. You still make mistakes when you speak, you sometimes forget words mid-sentence, and your English doesn't sound as smooth as you'd like it to be. This is the moment when many students think they're not good enough or that they'll never reach fluency. But let me tell you something important. If you can tell a complete story in English, even with mistakes, you're already ahead of most English learners worldwide. Those mistakes aren't signs of failure. They're evidence that you're actually using the language, not just studying it in textbooks. At this stage, your brain is doing something incredible. It's processing multiple language systems simultaneously: vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and meaning, all while you're trying to express complex thoughts. It's like learning to drive while also reading a map and having a conversation. Of course, it feels challenging, but every mistake is your brain's way of experimenting and learning. The key here is to embrace what I call productive mistakes. These are errors that happen because you're pushing yourself to express ideas that are at the edge of your current ability. When you try to explain a complex concept and struggle to find the right words, that's not weakness. That's growth in action. This is also when you should start exposing yourself to more authentic English content. Stop relying only on materials made for language learners. Start reading news articles, watching regular TV shows, listening to podcasts made for native speakers. Yes, you won't understand everything at first, but your brain will start picking up natural patterns and expressions. The magic happens when you stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English. You'll notice this happening gradually, first with simple thoughts, then with more complex ideas. One day, you'll realize you just had an entire internal conversation in English without even trying. Don't let perfectionism kill your progress. The goal isn't to never make mistakes. The goal is to communicate effectively despite making mistakes. Native speakers make mistakes too. They stumble over words, forget what they were saying, and use incorrect grammar sometimes. What makes them fluent is that they keep talking anyway. Welcome to the transformation stage. This is where your English stops sounding like textbook language and starts flowing like natural conversation. You've built your foundation, constructed your walls, and now it's time to add the finishing touches that make everything smooth, natural, and genuinely fluent. At this level, you're not just communicating anymore, you're connecting. Your pronunciation becomes more natural as you learn the rhythm and music of English. Instead of pronouncing each word separately like a robot, you start linking words together the way native speakers do. What do you want to do? Becomes a flowing phrase rather than 5 distinct words. Your vocabulary expands dramatically, often reaching 8,000 words or more. But here's the difference. You're not memorizing these words from lists. You're acquiring them naturally through real experiences, interesting conversations, and engaging content. These words stick because they're connected to emotions, stories, and meaningful contexts.
Grammar becomes intuitive at this stage. You stop thinking about whether you should use present perfect or past simple. The right choice just flows naturally. It's like riding a bicycle. You don't consciously think about balance and pedaling, you just ride. Your language instincts take over, and English starts feeling like an extension of your personality. This is when you begin to develop your own voice in English. You're not just copying phrases from textbooks anymore. You're expressing your unique thoughts, opinions, and personality through the language. You might even find that you express certain ideas differently in English than you would in your native language, and that's perfectly normal. You start understanding not just the words people say, but the emotions behind them. You catch subtle jokes, understand sarcasm, and pick up on cultural references. English becomes a window into different ways of thinking and seeing the world, not just a communication tool. The most beautiful part of this stage is that English becomes effortless. You're not constantly monitoring your grammar or searching for words. You're just being yourself in another language. Conversations flow naturally, and you find yourself forgetting that you're even speaking a second language. At this point, English isn't something you study anymore. It's something you live. You might read books for pleasure in English, watch movies without subtitles, or even prefer certain YouTube channels in English because the content is exactly what interests you. What's the most natural English conversation you've ever had? Was there a moment when you forgot you were speaking a second language? Tell us about that breakthrough moment in the comments. So there you have it, the complete journey from English beginner to confident, fluent speaker. We've walked through building that solid foundation with survival vocabulary, constructing this structure with balanced input and output, pushing through the challenging intermediate plateau, and finally reaching that beautiful flow state where English becomes as natural as your native language. The most important lesson from this entire journey is patience with the process. Every single fluent English speaker you admire went through these exact same stages. They had moments of confusion, made embarrassing mistakes, and felt frustrated when progress seemed slow. But they kept going, step by step, day by day, trusting that consistent effort would eventually pay off. Remember, there are no shortcuts to genuine fluency. You can't skip the foundation and jump straight to advanced grammar. You can't avoid making mistakes and still develop natural speaking ability. You can't rush through intermediate struggles and expect to sound native-like immediately. Each stage prepares you for the next one, and trying to skip ahead will only slow you down in the long run. The beautiful truth is that this journey never really ends. Even native speakers continue learning new words, discovering fresh ways to express ideas, and adapting their language as the world changes around them. Fluency isn't a destination where you arrive and stop growing.
It's a way of traveling where you're always discovering something new. Your English journey is unique to you. Maybe you'll spend longer in one stage than another, or find certain aspects easier than others. That's completely normal and perfectly fine. The key is to stay consistent, be patient with yourself, and celebrate every small victory along the way. Most importantly, use your English fearlessly. Don't wait until you're perfect to start having real conversations. Don't postpone speaking until you eliminate all mistakes. Start where you are, with what you have, and trust that regular practice will naturally lead to improvement. The students who succeed aren't the ones who study the most theory. They're the ones who use English the most in real situations. If this episode has helped clarify your English learning path, make sure to subscribe for more practical guidance, share this with a friend who's also learning English, and leave a comment telling me which stage resonates most with your current experience. Remember, every expert was once a beginner, and every fluent speaker started with their very first English word. Your English journey starts with the very next English sentence you speak, so make it count. Keep learning, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode.